fight with your bosses about. This is what you fight with your friends about. This is what you fight with your spouses about, your children about. Everybody just wants to know that they matter. That they matter. And this weekend is about you coming to understand how much you matter so you can help other people see that they too matter. Everybody is looking for validation. Even me. I get so much validation. People say, why didn't you get married? Every day I walked out of that show, I felt like, it's the wedding day. Big celebration. But because I understand this principle of validation, one day on the weekend, I was cooking for Stedman. And I like to cook when I want to. And I marvel, how many of you all cook every day? I don't know how you do it. How do you think of something new every day? It's hard, right? How many ways can you cook a freaking chicken? Anyway, I marvel. Every time I do cook, I think, oh, I'm cooking because I want to. There's so many people who have to cook. You have to cook something new every day. That in itself is such a huge accomplishment. But one day, Stephen had gone to play golf, which I love for him to play golf because I get to be alone. I love that. Wonderful, go play golf. That's wonderful. But this day I had decided to do a very loving thing. I was going to cook him, not chicken, but a goose. Can you cook a goose? Martha Stewart had been on the show, and she had taught us how to cook a goose. So I decided I am going to cook a goose for Stedman. And I'm going to get the goose myself. It's not easy finding good geese. They're not just like available, you know? Just don't go to Kroger and pick up a goose. So anyway, I decided I'm going to cook the goose for Stedman. And I know that golfing is 7-8 hours. He's going to play 18 holes. He's going to hit that ball. As long as he can see that ball, he's going to hit that ball. But I'm thinking once the street lights are on, that ought to be your cue to be moving on home. And he ain't showed up yet. So the goose is already cooked in a little string tied around the legs and stuff and all that stuff. And so a goose, you know, it'll start to get dry on you. So after 10 minutes, I'm fine. Okay, a little late. This is long before we were using cell phones every other minute. So 10 minutes pass, I'm okay. 15 minutes pass, start to get a little toot. 20 minutes, all jawed up. 30 minutes, there will be no goose tonight. I don't know what you're eating, but you're not eating here. So Stephen comes in, he knows he's in trouble. He knows it's bad. Because he's now stopped and got a bag of cucumbers and some tomatoes, and he's going to bring, he's saying, look what I brought you. I go, I have a garden. Thank you, Stephen. Don't need the cucumbers and tomatoes. So because I understood, almost instantly, why am I so upset? It's not about the goose. First, it's a goose, and I cook for you, and I cook for you. So I actually put this principle into practice, because I know a lot of you argue about the thing that you're really not arguing about. You're mad about the thing that you're really not mad about. So I said, he goes, I'm sorry. I go, it's not about the goose. It's really about me. It's about how I feel. It's about the fact that I don't have to cook, but I did. It was my love offering to you. You were not here. You didn't see that this was my love offering to you. You didn't feel that this was my love offering to you. And he said, that's not the man I want to be. That's not the man I want to be. And I promise you, this will never happen again. And it hasn't. So, I understand, and now he understands, that being able to validate someone and let them know that what you've done for me, what you do for me, how you treat me, how you love me, really, really matters. So understanding that validation principle was so key to understanding how to interview anybody on the show about anything. And as I said, the show took off when I was able to understand service and validation. But my life took off when I got this, that you are co-creating your life all the time. We are all co-creating our lives. And this is how you're doing it. So we all understand the law of gravity, right? Everybody understands that water is going to flow down. It's not going to flow up, and if it does, we're all in trouble. We're not on the planet Earth. What goes up must come down. It's law. And the same thing is true for this. It's called the third law of motion in physics. Newton's law. What goes out has to come back. To me, this is my deepest belief. It really is. It's my doctrine. It says for every action, there's an equal and opposite, bam, reaction. I love this. And this is the way your life is operating all of the time. What you think, what you feel, what you say, what you do, bam. Is always coming back, because you are an energy field that's constantly putting things out, and that energy, bam, is coming back. Now, in our country, we call it the golden rule, bam, that you do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Well, it's really not that. It's law. The law says what you do is going to be done. Actually, Miss Seeley said it better than anybody in the color purple. She said,
everything you've done to me, already done to you.
because it's a law. Bam. So, haters, bam. Jealousy, bam. Envy, bam. And the same thing is true for love. Bam. What you put out is already on its way back to you all the time. And here's the biggie. This is a real biggie. Somebody ring some bells on this one. This is so big. You don't just co-create your life. You co-create your life with the energy of your intention. Your intention. Your intention is ruling your life all the time. You co-create your life with the intention that you bring to every single situation. And it's your job, before you do anything, to know what is your truest intention, because that is what is coming back. Gary Zukov said this about intention in his book, See with the Soul. He said, intention is one with cause and effect. And every action, thought, and feeling is motivated first by an intention, and that intention is a part of that cause that exists as one with the effect, which means you can't participate in one without participating in the other. You can't do the thing with the intention without that energy of that intention is exactly what is coming back to you all the time. And that's why negative things feed negative things. It's also why if you buy somebody a nice Oprah child and you take it to the office, and then later on that day, you're going to the doctor and a parking space just shows up for you. The energy of your kindness is returned to you in like kindness. The energy of your anger, if you're sitting in a room gossiping about somebody, talking about them to somebody else who's your coworker, and later on you get a phone call that something unpleasant has occurred in your life, it's the energy of that coming back to you. Because your intentions created your thoughts, your words, and your actions. Now, this principle was life-changing for me because I had, for many years, what I call the disease to please. The disease to please. Anybody else in here ever had that? A lot of women have that.
Yes.
That means you're saying yes all the time when you really mean no. And what happens when you say yes when you mean no is you end up carrying a lot of resentment. Because this is what happens. What is the reason why you say yes when you mean no? What? You want what? You want to please them and you want them to think that you are nice. Right? Yes, and they think that you are nice, that's why they ask you again. You're laughing, but that is the truth. You want to please them, because that is your intention, and you do please them. That's why they ask you again. That's why you're the one carpooling all the time. Because they say, oh, you're the one I can come to. You're the one I can ask. You're the one I can do it. Because your intention is to make them think that you are nice. I remember saying that to Seven one day, because why do you keep doing that? I said, because I don't want them to think that I'm not nice. He goes, well, you're not nice. I go, what do you mean I'm not nice? I am Oprah. Did you not see me give away those cars? It's very nice giving away those cars. He said, I would not use nice as the term to define who you are. Because you're a lot of things. You're kind, you're generous, nice, I wouldn't say you're nice. You know who's nice? I said, because if I'm not nice, who is? He says, you know who's nice? Gail is nice. It's true, Gail is so nice. She takes a ride with the taxi driver. At the end of the drive, she knows his name, his children's names, their birthdays. They're exchanging emails. She's sending presents. I bought you a lottery ticket. I mean, now that is nice. I am not that. I'll help you in times of trouble, but I'm not buying you a lottery ticket. So this is the thing. I learned the hard. I have big lessons. I don't get little lessons. All my lessons show up on the evening news. I had a phone call from Stevie Wonder. And Stevie was asking me to participate in this charity. And I wanted Stevie Wonder to not be upset with me. But I decided it was about 19, because I learned this principle in 1989, so it was about 90, 91. I said, I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it because I don't want to help Stevie's charity. Don't try to tell Stevie I said that. It's the truth. Everybody, I help children, I love children. I have 20 girls in college in the United States. I have 190 girls in college in South Africa. I have a school. I help a lot of people. And so everybody approaches me with a letter or phone call with, we know you want to help the children. I do, but I don't want to help every child. Let somebody else help some children. So, this is the thing, Stevie calls me. I don't want to help the children, but I don't want him to tell anybody else that I'm not nice. So I think if I say no, he's going to say, that Oprah, she got all that money, she want to help the children. But I make a decision, because you have to make a decision, those of you who have this disease. It comes with a decision. And the decision is, what is my intention? If my intention is to actually help the children, then write the check. If your intention is just to make Stevie think you're okay, then don't. So I say, Stevie, you know what? I'm not. No. And I expect, because it's the first time I've done it, he's going to say, he said, okay, later. And I couldn't believe it. You mean all this time I've been saying yes and walking around mad when the whatever it is showed up that I have to now go do and I don't want to be there? So, what I learned is that you are responsible for your intentions. And if you do something that you don't intend to do, then you should expect the consequences of the energy of your not intending to do it to come back and slap you in the face. And it happens. Bam! Every time. Bam! It does. Now, when you realize that, everything starts to change for you. And you realize that you are the one. You are the one. You are teaching people how to treat you. You're the master of your fate. You're the captain of your soul. And that your life is being shaped by your beliefs. You become what you believe. You know, I believed sitting in that second pew. I believed when I heard the preacher every Sunday say that through God all things are possible and you are God's child. I so believed it. I so believed I was God's child. I thought Jesus was my brother. So God is my father, then Jesus must be my brother. So some little girls were going to beat me up after school in the 3rd grade. I told them Jesus of Nazareth was my brother. I talked about Nicodemus being born again. Told them the whole story. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego in the fire. They did not beat me up. They did tell everybody I was that crazy preacher girl. Leave that crazy preacher girl alone. But this is the thing. I believed I was God's child. And that God was always with me. And so, when my grandmother used to say, I didn't believe what other people told me was possible for me as a little black girl. We would call colored people a little Negro girl. I didn't believe what they believed about being a Negro girl. My grandmother used to say to me, Oprah, I hope you grow up and get some good white folks like the Leonards, who've been so good to me. She worked for the Leonards her whole life. That's how my mother got that pool skirt. The Leonards would give her hand-me-downs, and the Leonards would give us food, and the Leonards really, I think, in their own way, cared for her. And my grandmother really believed, she didn't believe I could become a teacher or a nurse, but she thought that the biggest dream for me would be to grow up and get some good white folks like the Leonards. And she died in 1963, and I regret that she did not live to see that I did grow up and get some really good white folks working for me. Really good. She would be stunned. She just wouldn't imagine the life that I now get to lead because of what I believed and felt and the spirit that I followed. So, I grew up with no bitter or limiting beliefs about what it meant to be a black child because I believed that all things were possible and was carried on the spirit of that, understanding, as I now do, that everything is energy and determined by what you believe. One of my favorite stories on the Oprah show is from a woman named Jill Bolte Taylor, who was a neuroscientist who's written a book called My Stroke of Insight. As a neuroscientist, she was having a stroke in the morning on the way to work, but because she's a neuroscientist, she knew it was a stroke. And after 4 or 5 hours, she was able to mumble her way through and make a phone call and get to the hospital. So, during her year-long rehabilitation, she said, because only the right part of her brain was operating, she could feel and sense the energy that the nurses were bringing into the room because of that right side of the brain. She could feel when people were coming in and they had something to offer that was good for her, and she could sense when they were not. And she had a sign, she couldn't write, but she had a sign put up in the room that said, you are responsible for the energy that you bring into this space. You are responsible for the energy that you bring into this space. You are responsible for the energy that you bring into this space. And your number one responsibility is to keep your vibration high, is to live in the space of positivity, because there are multiple forces at work in the universe all the time. Multiple forces that you have no control over. But this is what you do have control over. You have control over your energy field. You're an energy field. You're an energy field. We're all energy fields. And you have control over yours. You have great power over your own. And that is why Glinda the Good Witch, another great spiritual teacher, Glinda the Good Witch in The Wizard of Oz, when she says to the Wicked Witch of the West, go away. You have no power here. What she's saying is, you don't have any power in this territory. You only have power in yours. And so you can save yourself a lot of time and get on about living the life you want if you take care of your energy field and keep out of other people's energy fields. Stay out of other people's territory, because you only have power in your own. You don't have any power to decide what your daughter is going to do, what your husband is going to do, what your father is going to do, what your boss is going to do. You have no power over anybody's field other than your own. And your greatest power is your ability to love. That's all the power is. All the power is to show love, to receive love, and to be loved. And we're always walking in the direction of either love or fear. Marianne Williamson said that. And what is love? Love is grace and kindness and forgiveness and understanding. And it's respect, and it's cooperation, and it's collaboration. That's what love is. It's harmony, and it's reverence for life. And fear, I used to do the show, and men would stand and say, I ain't scared of nothing. But fear is anxiety. Fear is depression and anger. Fear is jealousy and hopelessness and greed and sadness. And ultimately, the big one, the big thing that was a common denominator in all the dysfunction that we share, feeling unworthy, feeling that you don't deserve to be here and be successful. And I'm here to tell you, you can move in the direction of fear or love like that. To have the life you want, you have to choose love. Only love works. Only love works. Now, you can't choose love when you're just whistling in the wind, when things are beautiful. It's when your friends don't have time for you. It's when the people you love sometimes have shown that they're not there to support you. It's in the most difficult of times when you have to dig deeper and to try to shift the paradigm of your anxiety and your frustration to that which is love. That's where your greatest power lies, in being able to do that. This is what I know. There's always a second chance. There's always a second chance. Doesn't matter what has happened to you. If you're still here, you're still breathing, it means you get another chance to get it right. That's what every day means. There have been some times in my life where I thought there won't be another day. When I was 14 years old, first of all, I was raped at 9, and then molestation continued 10, 11, 12, 13. By the time I was 14, I became pregnant. And I was in trouble. I was running the streets. I was running away from home. I was doing all those things, trying to get away from the life that had become so desperate for me. Living on welfare with my mother in Milwaukee. And my mother took me to the detention home in Milwaukee one day. She was going to put me in the detention home. And this is the grace of God. On the day that she took me and said, she can't stay at my house anymore, you all take her. They said, we're sorry, ma'am, but all our beds are full. So my mother sent me that next day to live with my father. And I walk in the house and I know that I'm pregnant, but I don't know how many months, I don't know what's going on. But I know I have enough shame about it. I have enough shame about it to hide it. So my father didn't know me. So I walked around the house in coats and sweaters, pretending to be cold all the time. And on the day that I arrived, my father had set down the rules in the house. He says, you're going to have a curfew and you're not going to be able to live the life that you lived in Milwaukee. There are going to be rules in this house, and I want to tell you something. No daughter of mine is going to ever come up pregnant. No daughter of mine is going to bring shame on this family and the Winfrey name. I would rather see you floating dead down the Cumberland River, he says to me. So I think my only alternative is to kill myself. To kill myself. Because I don't see a second chance. And as grace would have it for me, my legs started to swell. I didn't know what that meant. And I was taken to the hospital. And the doctor said, you must be pregnant. How many months pregnant are you? I didn't know. First I lied and said, no, I'm not, no, I'm not. He says, well, if you're not pregnant, this is the biggest tumor I have ever seen. And if I give you an x-ray, then we're going to damage this baby. So do you know what that is? Do you know how this happened? And I start to cry. And shortly after that, the thought of having to tell my father, who would rather see me dead floating down the Cumberland River, I went into labor. And a little baby boy was born. Prematurely, the boy did not live. And after he died, my father came to me and said, you get a second chance. We were going to take you out of school. You were not going to be able to finish school. But now you get a chance to start over. I went back to school. And on the day that I started back to school, I've been out of school a couple weeks, Jesse Jackson was speaking, and he happened to be talking about excellence. And I heard him give a speech and say, excellence is the biggest deterrent to racism. Excellence is the biggest deterrent to sexism. Therefore, be excellent. I took those words, I put them on my mirror. They became a mantra inside myself. I will be excellent no matter what I do. It's the biggest deterrent to racism. It's the biggest deterrent to sexism. Thank you so much. So, when I thought it was over, I got a second chance. I got a second chance. Understanding that the most important thing is to be able to keep yourself in the positive flow, your vibration high, choosing the way you think about your life. You are the master. You are the master of your fate. You gotta pay attention. You gotta pay attention. You are the captain of your soul, because your life is always, always speaking to you. It's always speaking to you. And this is how it comes. First, it whispers. It whispers to you. And if you don't pay attention to the whisper, it gets a little louder. And the whisper's always there to bring you a message. You all know what I'm talking about, because you know what's whispering to you right now. And the whisper's always like a little message. You don't pay attention to that, you end up with pebbles. So it gets a little louder. And the pebble, by the time the pebble shows up, means you got a problem. You got a problem because you didn't pay attention to the message that you got. And if you don't pay attention to the problem, what happens? It's like you get a brick upside your head. A lot of brick people. You don't pay attention. Because the brick is always there to say, oh my goodness, you're in a crisis now. And you don't pay attention to the brick, you end up with a brick wall coming down in your life in one form or another. A brick wall that you could have stopped in the whisper, where it was just a message. Think about your life and things that have shown up, how they always whisper first. People say, oh, it came out of the blue. Rarely does that happen. Rarely. Messages, problems, crisis, disasters. Life is speaking to you, especially in your greatest trials. And this is what I've learned. If you're able to be in a place of surrender when you've done all you can, after you've done all you can, and to be able to let whatever has spoken to you, whatever you need, whatever your heart's desire, and to let that go and surrender. Yama and I talk about this all the time, that surrender isn't this, but surrender is this. I learned this life-changing principle of letting go and surrendering when I wanted something more than I wanted anything else in my life. I wanted to be in the color purple. I wanted to be in the color purple. I had read the book and gotten out of bed and went and got all the other books in the bookstore. This is before I had a book club, 1980 something, 1984. So I read the book, and then I went to the bookstore and I got all the other books, and then I gave them to everybody in the office, and I said, everybody has to read this book. So I was obsessed with this idea of the color purple. And I made a decision. I'd heard that Quincy Jones and Steven Spielberg were going to do a movie about the color purple. Well, I didn't know them, and didn't know how I could know them. So I made a decision that, you know, when you go to the movies and you look at the last credit, the last thing on the credit is something called Best Boy. I made a decision that I'm going to convince them or somebody that I can be the best girl, because it's the last thing in the movie. I later found out that it's an electrician, so I wouldn't have been convincing nobody. But I read that story, and I so related because of my own abuse to Celi's story. So I'm going to find a way to be water girl, best girl, hold the script, something in this movie. And as grace would have it, because what you're putting out is coming back. And I put out this energy to everybody I knew in Chicago. But nobody knew Quincy Jones. But listen to this. One day, I get a call in the office saying, would you be interested in reading for a movie called Moon Song? And I say, are you sure it's not the color purple? Because I have not been praying about a movie called Moon Song. I've been praying about a movie called The Color Purple. So this is how this happens. Energy. When I tell you I didn't know a soul in the business, Quincy Jones comes to Chicago. I'm doing a show at the time called AM Chicago. Quincy Jones has to come to Chicago for a lawsuit that's being filed against Michael Jackson because he produced Thriller.